Well, and something interesting, because there's of course the NPS rater score of like, hey, how likely would you be to
Right.
refer to someone? But like, if you start asking about how they feel about the experience, how everything is, like a lot of times people will go the actual opposite. So like, let's say it's 1 to 10 on like how they feel it's been and the recovery's been. Well, they tell you an 8. Most people are like, they try to tell you like, oh, like what would make it a 10? And really, all they're saying is all the negative things. Really, you should actually go the opposite and say, well, I guess why didn't you rate it a 4? What did you like about it? So then they sell themselves on why it was good. And you're like, oh, so if we were to also improve this and this, it sounds like this would be a 10. And now you have a way to actually improve it. So that way you're not saying like, what are all the things you hated about us? Like that's pretty much what you do when you try to get them to a 10.
Right. Because that people can't, it's harder for them to verbalize that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help. Right. So like, hey, okay, I like that. I like that reverse.
Well, and that's what we do with physical therapy too. So it's like they've been to physical therapy before. We don't ask like, what did you not like about it first? It's what did you like about it? Because then you find out what's important to them. Oh, I really liked it because I always had the same therapist. I really liked it because of this. So, I mean, I guess if we could improve something, what do you wish maybe they had done?
Right.
But you opened it with an easier one to say, what did you like?
And I think that the timeline of asking for a review, I think it should be centered around a perceived peak of happiness. And sometimes that's on the first or second visit. And I know my buddy down in Florida, Ron Miller, he and his practice at Pursuit, like they will only ask. Now he's got like, I forget his number, multiple hundreds of reviews. He's got the most reviews of any practice in Orlando, Florida, and probably the surrounding area. So he's got a lot of Google reviews in general, but they only ask for the Google review at the end of the plan of care when they're discharging a patient, which it works for them. But what I've seen to get the most Google reviews, and if anyone's watching or listening, to get more Google reviews sooner, if there's some breakthrough, like, oh my gosh, my knee has been stiff for, months, and, you just worked on it for like 10 minutes. What did you do? And then you had me do this drill or whatever. And now it feels looser. I have more range of motion. This is amazing. And then Joey, the therapist, should be like, oh, that's amazing. Like, that's awesome. Like, and then you can kind of nicely, professionally segue it and say like, hey, like we help folks get, results like this all the time. And we would love for you to kind of share that in a Google review and mention this range of motion that we just got in your knee. And now you can walk better. And it only took 1 or 2 visits as opposed to waiting to the end of the plan of care. Because the end of the plan of care could be 10 visits, 15, it could be 8 visits, it could be 20 visits. And it takes a lot longer to even get that review on your Google listing.
Yeah, or they could just drop off before then, so you don't have the opportunity.
Right.
And so one of the ways that we facilitate this more is we teach every therapist on our routine visits. You ask them, share something that they were able to do that they weren't able to, or share a win since last time. Tell me something you're grateful for. And so it changes the dynamic versus the person who's saying like, hey, like I'm here, ain't I? Or like 9 out of 10 pain. And like, they're just negative the whole time. So one, it creates a better environment. But as soon as they tell you what that is, you go have them write it on a whiteboard. So you have the win board. So it just already starts to build more authority. They actually physically had to write down the things that were actually happening. And then you ask them for the review because it already has that process of being willing to do that. And so that's one of the easiest ways to start to do that. But I also don't love waiting till the end purely because I don't like pulling equity out of a relationship when they feel like they owe us right now. Because if we pull equity out, which anytime you're asking someone for something, whether that's a new offer, that's a review, that's a referral, we're pulling equity out of the relationship. I would rather save that for a referral than a review. Because really, you should have already asked for the review on the front end. I would rather ask for a referral, or I'm going to sell you into a continuity program. But if it's like, hey, I need to sell them into continuity for wellness, and I need to ask them for a review, and I need to ask them for a referral all in the last visit, hopefully they're ready to get sold 3 things because that's what we're doing. And it allows you, if you forget midway, still do it on the back end. But if you don't have the midway and you forget on the last session, unless you're calling them, which to be clear, every single one of us could very easily say, when these people get discharged, have your front office do a courtesy call to make sure that they are happy with everything that happened. They know their next steps. They know that they can call us back if they have residual issues. And that's another opportunity to ask them, do you want to leave us a review? The other option is to say, hey, well, how would you like to stay this way? You told me you're just out of pain. How would you like to stay this way? And they're like, oh, because what most people do is they sign up for our VIP, blah, 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 whatever your wellness program is. And so it allows you to do a lot of those things and have a more systematic way of doing it. But you've got to have like 10 touch points, because if you have a whole entire thing of like one, that's the only one. If you miss it, you miss it. If you have 10 and you miss 5 of them, cool. We still have 5 other opportunities.
Yeah. John, the Therapy Man, which is a great YouTube channel name, by the way, agrees, asks for a review after a breakthrough when the client and patient, like this goes back, like John, the Therapy Man, again, great name, brings up a great point.